We've got some breaking news here on CBS Sports HQ. The college football playoff is to remain at 4 teams through the 2025 season after expansion talks fell through. Now, this version of crowning a national champion in the sport started back in 2014. The 12-year contract expires after 2025 and its season. And by choosing to remain at 4 teams for 4 more years, 10 FBS conferences, and Notre Dame, ESPN saying forfeiting roughly $450 million in potential revenue. Here is part of a statement from Bill Hancock on the CFP expansion. Said the CFP board, the managers, has accepted a recommendation from the management committee to continue the current 4-team playoff for the next 4 years as called for in the CFP's original 12-year plan. At the same time, the board expects the management committee to continue its discussions of a new format that would go into effect for the 26/27 season. And lastly here, even though the outcome did not lead to a recommendation for an early expansion before the end of the current 12-year contract, the discussions have been helpful and informative. All right, to help explain what this all means, we've got Danny Cannell and Dennis Dodd. And Dennis, I'll have you start first. What are we to take away from what we're learning here this morning?
Well, absolutely no surprise that this happened. To say this was a recommendation, as soon as Bob Bowlesby, the Big 12 commissioner, came out of that meeting January 10th in Indianapolis and basically said he was upset at the way things had gone, you knew this was what was going to happen. The discussion the whole time, remember this was commissioned, Tommy, in January of 19, those 4 members of the subcommittee to study expansion. The whole time was to get to whatever number you were going to get, but they didn't get there. And then it became tied up with Texas and Oklahoma. A month later, after the proposal from the 4 subcommittee members of the 12-team playoff, it looked good at the time. It was way complicated, and now it wasn't going to happen. Started in January 19. The soonest we can get to this thing now is the fall of 2026. So that's almost, 7 years after they even studied this. So it was, I don't want to say it was doomed from the start, because it wasn't. I thought in June it was going to happen. Everybody did. The ACC has put a stick in the ground. For better or worse, they want a 365-day holistic review of college football. The moment they said that, there wasn't enough time to install this for 2024, and they weren't in favor of it as proposed anyway. They have health and safety concerns. I mean, we've all read what their concerns are. But it's not going to happen. And what form it's going to be in 2026, something else to remember, guys, is that a lot of these people that were involved in this are going to be retired. I would think, Bill Hancock, the executive director of the CFP, some of these commissioners, Craig Thompson, who's been at his job in the Mountain West longer than anybody in this system, in this discussion, may be gone by then. And what's college football going to look like then? So it's not surprising, but another long wait.
It's not surprising, but it's incredibly frustrating. It wasn't that long ago. You mentioned June. The college football playoff, Bill Hancock was on record saying this is a historic day for college football. And here you go, college football fans. Everything you guys have wanted, a 12-team, an expanded playoff, here it is. And it wasn't only an announcement. It gave you specifics. It was very specific. It said we're going to have the 6 highest conference champions. We're going to have 6 teams selected, and we're going to keep the same process. And we're going to have buys in the first round, and we're going to have home field advantage in the first rounds. We're going to get playoff games on college campuses. And guess what happened? Everybody gets excited. That all of college football fans started getting really excited about the opportunity, about what had been discussed and what had been officially announced by the college football playoff. But only in the world and the beautiful disaster that is college football and all of its history would this happen, because now it's been yanked right around from underneath us. If this was all behind closed doors, I don't think anybody would have been excited. But I think, Dennis, you alluded to one of the major wrenches in this was Oklahoma and Texas to the SEC, which caught everyone by surprise. I think it threw everyone for a loop. And I think that was kind of the beginning of, there's going to be some major, shifts in college football. And then you had NIL. And then you had, the transfer portal. And then you had all these other major changes taking place, where I think a lot of the parties it kind of threw a wrench into this, what I think was a great suggestion, where everyone now kind of wants to hit the pause button.
Danny, let me throw it back to you. What's the fan sentiment, either through your mentions, the Cover 3 podcast discussions? We obviously know what schools and conferences might want, but what about the fan interest and the thought process of not having the expansion here?
Yeah, I don't want to put a percentage on it, but I've done polls before, Tommy, where I would say there's overwhelming support for expansion. I'd say 75% of college football fans, and I think that's probably I'm just trying to be conservative and not overestimate. But people are excited about the possibility of more teams. People were really excited about having home playoff games potentially. But I also think, talk to a Pac-12 fan. They're definitely interested and excited about possibly getting a team in there, which they haven't done in several years. A lot of excitement. The other thing too, Tommy, that I don't think, talking to a lot of college football coaches, I think they were excited about it too. And not only excited, but I think everyone, especially from the coaches and administrators, they know it's coming and it's eventually going to happen. So why can't we get it to happen now? So I think there was an incredible amount of excitement and anticipation of getting expansion. And now there's an incredible amount of frustration, which why can't we figure out a way to get this done and keep everybody happy, including college football fans? Because to me, that's the biggest loser in all of this. The excitement was there, and now that rug has been yanked out from underneath them. That to me is the most frustrating aspect.
Dennis, I'll give you a final word here. Is there anything that fans can look forward to? What's your final thought here before we wrap things up?
Well, thinking about it this morning, I think some blame has to be assigned here, and I'm not sure where it goes, because this, at the end of the day, has been a tremendous waste of time for a lot of people, for those commissioners, for the media, for the fans who tried to follow this. In that, as I mentioned, it's going to be more than 7 years if and when this thing is instituted in 2026. What is the Big 12 going to look like then? Are there even going to be a Power 5 conference? And you have to understand, through this whole window, everybody's going to renegotiate, almost all the Power 5s except for the SEC. And if you're tired of the SEC being in the playoff, strap up, get ready, because it's going to be more of the same. The 12-team playoff gave access to everybody. More access. Notre Dame, the group of 5. Mike Oresco is in favor of it, obviously. But I think some blame has to be assigned here. And I'm not sure where it goes. Yes, we can talk about the SEC for entertaining, Oklahoma, Texas. But we can talk about the CFP itself for putting out the proposal on June 21st, a month before that happened. Nobody knew that was going to happen. But the tea leaves weren't read here. Within that time, you had new commissioners come on board. You had new points of view. And I thought this was handled very, clunky in the process. And the fans, frankly, deserve better.
All right, Dennis, we know you're right about it. Danny will be talking about it. Gentlemen, thank you very much with the news today. Again, the college football playoff expansion not going to happen. It's going to stay with 4 teams. Cover 3 podcast, DK, of course, Tom Fornelli, Chip Patterson, Bud Elliott. The guys will be talking about the news that developed today. Make sure you download and follow our college football podcast today.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.